Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and this is my review of Casino Royale. When the No Time to Kill trailer dropped about, I don't know, a week or so ago, it reminded me how much I loved Skyfall. So I then went to rewatch Skyfall, did a video on that, and then I basically did all of the Daniel Craig era completely out of order. I think I did Skyfall, Quantum of Solace, Spectre, and then Casino Royale. And I've got to say, yeah, I know I know the title of this video is a little trolly, but why did they never make a sequel to Casino Royale? Now, yes, I know they made Quantum of Solace, but they made Quantum of Solace, but it's not really a sequel to Casino Royale at all. Casino Royale is much more similar to some kind of normie fare like Mask of Zorro by the same director, Martin Campbell, which I absolutely love. Now, Quantum of Solace matches Skyfall and Spectre quite well, but it doesn't match Casino Royale. Neither does any of the movies that came after that. I would hesitate to say that Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace were both soft reboots, and then the rest of this phase has been based mainly off of Mark Forster's Quantum of Solace. So for people who don't really follow directors that much, Martin Campbell's been around forever. He does very, very like mainstream normie fare. He did GoldenEye. He did, you know, the previous soft reboot of James Bond. And a soft reboot is when you take some elements, you make them different. For instance, you cast a younger actor because the last one was aging out. But you keep some elements. For example, Judi Dench, who's been there since GoldenEye. So Martin Campbell does really, really great action set piece normie fare. He's done a ton of stuff, and I can only think of 3 movies, but he's done a lot more, and I really, really like his stuff. I literally wore out my VHS tape of Mask of Zorro, although weirdly enough I still have not seen the sequel, Legend of Zorro, I believe it's called, because first of all, it was one of those ones where, you know, the kind of unspoken rules about how long can you wait for a sequel before it's just weird. I feel like that one was outside of the bounds of this is weird. They also advertised it as, do you remember the great love story from the first one? They're getting divorced. And you're like, what? No, that's not fun. I don't want to see that. And they were really, really advertising it. And, you know, Catherine Zeta-Jones, she's like, you know, I'm a hero in my own right. And we're not even married. We're getting divorced. I was like, that does not sound fun. No. So let me know if I should check out that Mask of Zorro sequel. So anyway, I do remember very distinctly when this movie was in development and came out. It was kind of in that, do you remember the Harry Knowles Ain't It Cool News era that lasted from like, I don't know, 1998 to, I guess his real heyday was about 10 years, 10, 12 years. So they announced the casting of Daniel Craig, who was blonde. He was more of sandy blondish, you know, but whatever, he was blonde. This was shocking because everyone else had a whole lot of variety of hair colors, from black to dyed black wearing a toupee to brownish but dyed hair. Like I don't at some point, people are very, very, very simple. You cast a blonde person as a character who has not been blonde before, and people freak out. The other one is that he was, quote, ugly or ordinary looking. I gotta say, he doesn't seem ugly or ordinary looking when you're just watching the film, but when all of a sudden you watch a you watch a YouTube video where they just show all of the other Bonds in rapid succession, and then they show his face. Yes, absolutely, he does. He was in one of the I believe he was in one of the Guy Pearce, you know, London knockaround crime, and he totally looks like that. Him and Jason Statham, they have that like tough but kind of like blue collar look to them. The other one that was a huge deal that kind of got memory hold is that Daniel Craig was a wimp. There was some report that he, I don't know, broke his ankle, twisted his ankle, something. Some kind of injury, and he had to take, I believe they had to halt production for a couple weeks. So then it became Daniel Craig, the Nancy boy, the wimp. I mean, you could look at the promotional photos. One of the famous ones from that time was him coming out of the ocean, and he was probably the most muscular of all of the Bonds. He kind of, you can tell he really wasn't into working out that much, because he never quite got as big as he did in Casino Royale. But Casino Royale is supposed to be about kind of Bond before he became Bond, James Bond. So he was blonde. Oh my gosh, he's a wimp. That was just a weird thing to go with. And then the movie came out, and basically everyone loved it. Now my brain is failing me, and I forgot to check if Bourne came out first. I do believe that I believe the first Jason Bourne movie came out like a year or two before. And I remember, it's gonna sound really okay. I'm gonna destroy this whole video if it actually came out afterwards. But I remember it coming out a year or two before. So I remember them bringing that up, and that the action scenes were choppy, but they're very, very, very clear, especially in the action set pieces, such as a foot chase in, I forget what country in Africa it was. And then even like things that I thought were very confusing, like the spoilers, 16 years later, the death of Vesper Lind at the end. Even watching it like real small on my phone, I could follow every single, oh, she locked herself in, oh, she wanted to, okay. But obviously, okay, so I think I talked around the movie enough. So let's talk about the movie. So this was a soft reboot, casting a younger actor after a break of, I think, about 5 years from the last James Bond movies. All the James Bond movies were profitable. I think every James Bond movie has been profitable ever. But you know, it was kind of Pierce Brosnan, who I liked a lot, was getting older. They were getting really silly, and they weren't cool anymore. So they took a break, recast. Their big brain, fourth dimensional chess idea was, remember the last guy who did a soft reboot of the thing with GoldenEye? And like, what was GoldenEye, like 1994 or 5? I think it was 95. Yeah, let's just get him again. A whopping, at the time they were, hiring people, this was a whopping 10 years previously. So they hired Martin Campbell. You got a new crew, and they're make this more realistic. The other huge influence, although was it though? It was Batman Begins, but Batman Begins, they would have already been in production of this most likely when Batman Begins came out, just the year before, correct? The year before, 2005? Sorry, I'm driving the gym and I can't drive and research. So this one was an origin. It was Bond before, I mean, technically, it starts and it's like 3 minutes before he earns his 00 status. Now, here's the deal. I liked that part just fine. And it was the part I actually liked the least. This movie is 2.5 hours for really no reason. They do this other thing that they also do in Spectre, in which they introduce the love interest, and not just a love interest for like the movie and then they forget it. And it's not like a Vicky Vale, like there's one line about her in the next movie. Oh, okay, whatever. Alfred lit her in and told her my secret. But they're trying to say like this is a love of his life. And I remember when I saw it the first time, I thought they did a good job with that. But watching it the second time, I'm like, Vesper, how is this like the big love of his life? Like, she isn't even introduced until an hour into the movie. They don't even really seem to like each other until an hour and a half into the movie. This is weird. I don't know why they started doing this. But they show how he earned his 00 status, which is 2 kills. I don't need to know that, and it doesn't really make sense. A license to kill is, I don't know. Governments do that all the time, and it's like, when Osama bin Laden, they had the Osama bin Laden raid, they did killer capture. When somebody tells you killer capture, it means kill. Navy SEALs have a license to kill. A lot of people have a license to kill. It's basically like, you're going to kill someone we don't like, an enemy of the state, and we're not going to prosecute you. I didn't need to know that it was 2 kills and that the 2 kills are 2 zeros. It's like that whole scene in Batman Begins where they're like, oh, these are the ears for your cowl. They have radio transmitters, and so it's not obvious. We ordered 10,000 of them from China. It's like, I don't need to know how Batman got the cowls or the ears on his cowl, and I don't need to. Oh, the 2 zeros equal 2 cows. Blah blah blah. But we do get a really cool scene in Africa that really shows, first of all, that Daniel Craig is not a wimp, and that they're really going for a more big action set piece stunts, and that's why they hired Martin Campbell. Daniel Craig is on record as saying that there were barely any special effects, and most of the special effects were just deleting cables that were there for safety to keep people from falling. And I've got to say that seems to be borne out by how quick the credits are. I always notice, since I watch things on my phone and it's like, right there, right by my face, that the credits are only like 3.5 minutes long, and that shows you there was not a lot of digital effects people. So we start off there, and he's rough around the edges. His kills are very rough and nasty in a bathroom, and just like assassinating someone who's just sitting in a chair. They're not heroic at all. They're just kind of grimy and gross and kind of gangsterish. And then he gets his status, and then we're on to his first mission, which is the Chief. What's his name? Mads Mikkelsen. And this is a character that shouldn't work but does. He's a really boring financier for we find out later in Spectre he was a financier for Spectre, but he's just they just say he's for terrorists. And there's a great moment. Okay, so I gotta say, this is the whole Bond, cold persona, and he's kind of hot in this one. He gets emotional a lot. He falls in love. But there's also a great part where they're doing a gambit where they're actually going to get into a high stakes poker game with a financier, a terrorist financier who's trying to win back some money that he lost. Oh, that was another great action set. The weird thing is they front load it with 2 really huge action set pieces. And then, like, the last hour is a card game. It's more of a card game, almost montage, really. Not exactly a montage, but they keep kind of cutting, and then something else will happen, and then they're back to a card game. But that one should not be an interesting enough character to have the main villain for a 2.5-hour movie, but it was. It's hard to explain to someone why Le Chiffre was a good villain and Green from Quantum of Solace was a bad villain, but they are. I mean, there's some kind of obvious things, like Mads Mikkelsen has a very distinct look. He has some scars. He has an eye that cries blood. It gives him something. The guy who played Green in the second one was reportedly begging. He's like, "Can I shave my head? Can I have a beard? Can I have a scar? Can I have something?" They're like, "Nope, nope, nope. You get nothing." Things like that matter. So it's a weird kind of imbalanced Thanos would not like this movie. It is not perfectly balanced, as all things should be. 2 huge action set pieces in the first hour, and then introduce a love interest, and then a card game, like a card game that stretches over an hour. It's multiple rounds of it over, actually, I think multiple days. I think a day and a half or something like that. But one of the things I love about this is there's actually some tradecraft. It's some really, really simple tradecraft. It is barely one step above your average, episode of the Rockford Files or Magnum PI, but he actually tries for something. It's also kind of funny to realize that 16 years ago, things were quite different. He has like this shitty Ericsson phone that was like the height of technology back then. No flip phones, no smartphones. His big thing is to backtrace a call and then corroborate it by what time the call happened by, using some real basic tradecraft to get into a security office. I mean, that part I freaking loved. It's so much more interesting to see Bond talk his way and flirt his way and trick his way into the security office of a resort in Nassau, Bahamas, than it is for him in Spectre to throw a watch that would have been confiscated, that blows up his supervillain brother, and then go outside and shoot a valve on like a natural gas, processing thing, and then blow up the entire complex of the bad guys. So like I said, it's kind of weird and balanced, but I like, at first when Bond, he's just Commander Bond, he's just some, CIA, MI6 type, in khaki pants with the team. I mean, they don't really emphasize that he's on a team, but they show, another member of his team. But I've got to say, this is really, really good. And I remember there's this one scene in Spectre where he's, I forget where he is, Morocco, something like this. And they are so obsessed with the visual style of it. They have such a heavy filter on it that every single thing is the same color. The sky is tan. Bond's eyeballs are tan. The ground is tan. Everything's sand colored and stylized, but I don't like it. It's not funny. It's not fun. It's not interesting. At least Skyfall had some kind of deep, rich colors. But Quantum of Solace and Spectre are almost monochrome. And Bond is kind of miserable. And honestly, who can blame him? Daniel Craig took this position with a really good, rich script. An imbalanced script, but a very good, rich one. And they're like, you're just a cold asshole, and we're just going to basically direct these like they're high-end liqueur ads, for the next 3. It's a recommend. 16 years later, I would definitely say after rewatching all of these, I think I still like Skyfall, which is basically James Bond, The Dark Knight. It's that one. He's basically got a Heath Ledger Joker. But I still would like Skyfall more, even with the weird Home Alone 30 minutes tacked on at the end. It's more stylish. It does get more emotional. It's got some... the action set pieces are not better, and they're actually kind of annoying. But it's got some higher highs, lower lows, and they do the stylized thing right. I absolutely do not think that No Time to Die is going to be like that. It's basically going to be another Spectre, and it's just going to be a end with a whimper, I believe. But I would definitely... I mean, kind of, it was always my second. I remember people saying in the comments, they're like, you really need to give Casino Royale another chance. It's much better than you say. I was like, I might have misspoke or not, elucidated on my hypothesis, but I always thought Casino Royale was good. It just kind of faded in my memory how good it was, and I really wish they would have done sequels to it that were more like this. Martin Campbell, some good big action set pieces, some tradecraft. That's the type of stuff I like. So anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe. Make sure you're... I'd do that on the other one. Thanks for watching. So I've done all of the Daniel Craig. I've still got to do, I don't know, there's this one Underworld movie I've never seen, so I'm probably going to do that one next. Thanks, bye.